Hello, good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Paso Robles City Council for Tuesday, November 17th. Before I call the meeting to order, once again, I will read the following. In compliance with the state and county shelter at home orders and as allowed by the governor's executive order N-29-20, which allows for a deviation of teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act, city council meetings will be held by teleconference only until further notice. Rather than attending in person, residents should call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via telephone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the closed session meeting and again prior to the start of the regular meeting. Written public comments can be submitted via email to cityclerk@prcity.com prior to 12 noon on the day of the council meeting to be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. City Council meetings will be live streamed during the meeting and also available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link, www.prcity.com/YouTube. That bit of business having been completed, I will call the meeting to order now and ask everyone to please mute their microphones with the exception of Councilwoman Garcia, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, sir. Everyone together, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For our invocation tonight, I understand Pastor Sheehan is with us. Pastor?
Our Father in heaven, holy is your name. We ask your blessings upon Mayor Martin and our council members for grace and wisdom and understanding to lead us through these chaotic times. May you keep them in health and bless their every decision. Father, may your grace be upon those whose livelihoods are once again being challenged by lockdowns. Bring your provision that they may continue in our community until the scourge is past. And Father, we ask your peace and blessing over our nation through this blessed season when we pause to give thanks for your presence over these United States of America. Thank you for your blessings upon our city. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Garcia?
Here.
Councilmember Gregory?
Here.
Councilmember Hammond?
Here.
Councilmember Strong?
Here.
Mayor Martin?
Here. And at this time, I would ask staff members who are online with us to please identify themselves.
Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Christopher Alecco, Interim Public Works Director. And with me tonight are Adidas Esperanza, Patty Gwathmey, and Matt Thompson.
Julie Dolan, Community Services Director, joined by City Librarian Angelica Fortin.
Ty Lewis, Police Chief, joined with Caleb Davis, Commander.
Jonathan Stornetta, Fire Chief, joined by Fire Marshal Randy Harris.
Brian Cornell, Administrative Services.
Sarah Johnson-Rios, Assistant City Manager, joined by Melissa Martin, City Clerk, Dave McHugh, IT Manager, Shauna Howenstein, Civic Engagement Coordinator, and Paul Sloan, Economic Development Manager.
Kimberly Hood, Interim City Attorney.
Tom Frucci, City Manager.
Thank you. Prior to this open session of the Paso Robles City Council, we had a publicized closed session, and I will ask the City Attorney if there was any reportable action from that meeting.
The council convened in closed session for one item, Conference of Labor Negotiators pursuant to 54957.6. There is no reportable action.
Thank you very much. We proceed now with our agenda presentations. Item number 1, we have our COVID-19 community update.
Good evening, Mayor Martin and members of the council. Jonathan Stornetta, Fire Chief. Next slide, please. And one more. Thank you. The state now has over 1 million positive cases, which is an increase of approximately 100,000 cases since the last report to council. Total deaths in the state have risen to 18,299. This is an increase of over 600 new deaths since our last report. Next slide, please. Case. Other way. There we go. Thank you. Case counts have doubled statewide in the last 10 days, and ICU admissions have increased by over 38%. As a result, 40 counties moved back a tier this week. Effective yesterday, the state has modified its blueprint for a safer economy, and San Luis Obispo County is now in the state's purple tier, which has the most restrictions. Next slide, please. Hospitalizations are currently low, but tend to trail 2 to 3 weeks behind case spikes. The county has said in the past that our hospitalization and ICU numbers have remained low due to San Luis Obispo County residents being healthier on average than most. High-risk residents and older residents should continue to protect themselves, especially during the holidays. Next slide, please. The Paso Robles zip code area continues to lead the county in total case counts. Even if the Cal Poly numbers were taken out of the total, San Luis Obispo County would still be in the purple tier. People ages 18 to 29 make up the largest number of cases, which is dangerous during the holidays when they mix with older or at-risk family members. SLO County currently has a total case count of 5,250. That's an increase of 870 total cases since my last report. Of those 5,250 cases, 713 of those are currently active, and that's an increase of 511 new active cases since my last report to City Council. The county did have an additional 1 fatality since my last report, bringing the total now to 34 fatalities. Next slide, please. Effective yesterday, San Luis Obispo County is now in the state's purple tier, which has the most restrictions. Locally, our unadjusted rate was at 17.7 last week, and the adjusted rate was 12.5 with a 5.1% positivity rate. While testing levels in the county have remained constant over the last month, our adjusted case rate has more than tripled during that time, and our positivity rate has more than doubled. The state has also modified its blueprint for a safer economy. Counties will move more quickly between the tiers, moving back to more strict tiers after only 1 week instead of 2. Further, counties will be able to move back more than 1 tier at a time when blueprint metrics rise quickly. Next slide, please. So some of the restrictions we're seeing now that the purple tier has been implemented as of today. You can see the restaurants, fitness centers, worship services, museums, zoos, and movie theaters have to move all their operations outdoors now. Retail locations have a max occupancy of 25% instead of the 50%. Bars and breweries, there's no change. They still remain closed. And there's no changes for personal care services like we saw before. They can remain open. Next slide, please. California has a blueprint for a safer economy in the state with revised criteria for loosening and tightening restrictions on activities. The state planned to use an emergency brake should case numbers increase rapidly, like we have seen over the last 10 days. As a result, guidance has been modified in certain industries and sectors, even in the purple tier. Businesses and employees should check their industry guidance now, and they can go to covid19.ca.gov to make sure they are following the current guidelines and are aware of any possible new restrictions. Next slide, please. The state reiterated and strengthened its mask mandate language yesterday, so the Department of Public health exemptions include those persons that are younger than 2 years old, persons with a medical condition, those that are hearing impaired or communicating with a person who is hearing impaired, and persons for whom wearing a face covering would create a risk to the person related to their work. Next slide, please. The state also issued some holiday safety guidance. In general, the more people from different households a person interacts with at gatherings, the closer the physical action is, and the longer the interaction lasts, the higher the risk that a person with a COVID-19 infection, symptomatic or asymptomatic, may spread it to others. Public health studies have also shown that the risk of transmission is increased in indoor spaces, particularly when there isn't appropriate ventilation. Unlike outdoor spaces, wind and air in outdoor spaces can help reduce spread of the virus from one person to another. Next slide, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The city response portion of tonight's presentation will be quite brief because you have 2 more in-depth presentations on your agenda regarding our COVID response. You'll be hearing from the city librarian on the library's pandemic response And then later on the agenda, a discussion item from the city manager about the city's response in relation to some of the changes that were implemented yesterday that Chief Stornetta outlined. So in terms of how these impact city services, most of our services will remain the same as we've been offering them during the pandemic. Field operations are continuing with safety precautions in place. Office-based services continue to be provided virtually or by appointment. Our community services staff is continuing to sanitize any public spaces, and the library will continue modified operations, which you'll hear more about later. One change I'd like to highlight is that all indoor activities at Centennial Park will now need to be moved outside or suspended. So that will happen as a result of our move back to the purple tier. We continue to update all of our city staffing policies to reflect new guidance. And we're continuing all of the COVID prevention communications efforts that we've briefed you on at previous council meetings. Next slide, please. So now more than ever, it is important to get tested, especially if you're experiencing symptoms or think you've been exposed to COVID-19. And as a reminder, again, we do still have the free testing site at the event center on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Paso Robles is still the only city, as far as I know, with a Saturday testing site. And that concludes our presentation. Chief Stornetta and I are available for any questions.
Thank you. This is a presentation item. There's no council action required. That being said, council questions of staff on this presentation, starting with Mr. Strong.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia?
Yes, sir. Just a question on the testing site. I've had residents tell me that it's taking a long time. Do you know how many appointments they do per day, Sarah?
I believe it is 130. Does that sound correct, Chief Stornetta?
That does sound about right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
And lately, I'll just add, as of a few days ago to a week ago, we were getting reports from the county that they did have appointments available on some or all days and at the Paso location. But of course, there are several other testing sites available throughout the county, and that information is on emergencyslow.org. So if residents are having a hard time getting appointments here, they can certainly use other free testing sites around the county.
Thank you. Councilman Gregory?
No questions. Thank you.
And Councilman Hammond?
Yeah, one, Mr. Mayor. Jonathan, did I hear you right that the rules have changed now with regard to we don't have to wait 2 weeks, we wait 1 week to change back or up or down? Is that correct? I mean, actually, we can only go down at this point, but 1 week?
That is correct. Just a couple things to note there. So we do only wait 1 week now, and before the state issued new guidance once a week, and now they can issue that guidance any day during the week. So this is to allow businesses to make the changes with their safety guidelines, and they're requiring those changes if they're made and the status of our tier are conducted within 24 hours of being assigned a new tier instead of the previous 72-hour time period.
Got it. So it makes it a little more easier to get back. But again, the word obviously has to get out to the public that that particular store or restaurant is open again for more people at this point. So, okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the community waiting to comment on this presentation?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. We are moving on. Thank you for that information. We'll be discussing COVID-19 more as the evening progresses. Presentation number 2, our capital projects report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Ditas Esperanza, Capital Projects Engineer. This is the Public Works update for projects under construction. So Dry Creek Road repair is just about done. The flushed curb and driveways are completed and it's ready for paving. Actually, these photos were taken last week. The paving did start this week And so even these pictures are already outdated. But on the next report, I will be showing you the fully, at least the first lift of pavement for Dry Creek Road. And as a reminder, this is the full depth reclamation type construction. So the dirt that you see in this picture this week has been dug down about 13 inches deep. And then the cement lime chemical has been introduced to that depth of soil, which will become the structure section for the road. And then on Thursday and Friday, the first lift of asphalt will be placed. So by this weekend, we will have a pretty much paved road, but just the first lift of asphalt. Here are some more pictures from last week. The main west tank, as you know, is fully operational. The remaining work is the pavement at 19th and the access road. The access road was paved last week. And this week we are currently performing the paving at 19th Street. That big slab of concrete you see in the picture is actually a cross gutter. It looks really bigger than it really is just because of the photo, but the cross gutter will take drainage from the north side of 19th Street and carry it to the south side to prevent deterioration of the pavement once it's completed. So we had the Monari Trunk Sewer Emergency Protection Project. That went really fast. We needed to complete it before the winter rains, and I'm pleased to announce that we have completed it. These are the stabilizing of the pipe with rocks and erosion blankets. And now we've completed the work, and we placed disturbed soils with hydroseed. So that project is essentially done, so we can rest easy that when the winter rains come, those pipes are fully stabilized and protected in place. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any more questions.
Thank you. Also a presentation item, no action required. Starting with questions or comments, Councilman Strong.
Yes. Have we got any word? I know this was on Dry Creek, but Dry Creek was kind of coupled with Jardine. Do we know anything about what the county's doing on Jardine, if anything?
Yes, the Jardine Road is a county project, and we are reimbursing them for the cost of that. They are poised to begin Jardine early December after the Thanksgiving holidays.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Garcia?
No questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory?
Yes, Ditas, what is the name of the product that they're putting in the soil under Dry Creek Road? Or is there a methodology? What is that called?
It's called Full Depth Reclamation, FDR. It's really not a product that they put in. It's a cement lime ratio. It's actually it's quite technical. We had to take 25 buckets of soil sample along the road. They take that soil sample to their lab and they analyze the soil sample, and based on the condition or the characteristic of the soil, they come up with a formula on the ratio of cement and lime that could be introduced to the soil based on the specifications that we put out, and that's the material that they are introducing to the soil. So it's not really a product; it's rather a chemical or lab developed material that would go with the existing characteristic of the in situ soil.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you. And then I had one more question. I've had a couple of constituents that are concerned about people using Dry Creek as a high-speed road because we haven't had it that good in a long time. Is there any plans to put up like flashing signs or speed control signs, or is there anything in the plan for that?
We don't have those types of amenities or devices with the construction package at this time.
And is the speed limit out there 35 or 45?
It's probably in the 45 range, but what we can do once it's all done is we can do a speed survey study, and then based on that, we would establish the speed limit. But I imagine if we put the speed limit, it'll probably be, if we do the speed survey, it might be higher than the 55. So we might just stick with that, but we'll have to see what happens. But just remember, though, we're still going to do phase 2, which is from Warbirds to Jardines. So we'll probably need to finish that part and then go from there.
All right. And then did the width of the road change at all? Is it a little bit wider or is it about the same?
It's actually wider. It looks really different. It looks deceiving in the photos, but the existing road is about like sometimes 20 feet wide, but the ultimate width, I think, is like 12 with some shoulders, some additional 2 feet. I can't remember, but it's actually wider than what was existing. It's just very, the pictures look very not, it's perception.
So 12-foot lanes with a little buffer on each side, basically?
Yeah, I think it's 12 foot, and then we added a couple of feet shoulder, so it might, so the actual flush curb to flush curb, I think, is 28 feet.
That's wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Adidas, I'll continue on a little bit. I noticed the other day when I was coming to work that they were actually mixing that cementatious material with the soil, and it almost looks, as you look at it before they roll it in, it almost looks like a concrete mix, truly. And I think, with what, if this is similar type of material that we use north of Propeller Drive on Airport Road, it's held up extremely well, and I think it was cost efficient too. My main question I had on that was, I believe we got held up with a gas line down there where I believe Hunter, the Sensorio group, was bringing their gas line off of there, and I heard that kind of put us back a little bit on timing.
Actually, no, because we couldn't go back. The time, it was very critical that the work started on Monday, because Griffin is a sub to Ramina, and if Ramina postponed the time for them to come on Monday, it would have been a domino effect, and it would have been very costly. So when Papich, representing Sensorio, needed to do their gas main, we said, you can do it, but you better be out of there by Monday, because come Monday, we're doing this work. And if we can't do the work, then we're going to charge you for all the extra costs that's going to be required if you don't finish. So they were they did really well, and they actually finished Friday afternoon.
Yeah, that was good motivation. As far as the speeds out there, very typical Airport Road, essentially 50 to 55 is very, very typical. I imagine we're going to see 45 to 50 on Dry Creek, of course, but you're right. Anything long and straight with nothing on either side of it's going to be a temptation for people to speed up, but we'll see how that goes, I guess. Other than that, I didn't have anything further, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody from the community wanting to comment on this report?
No, sir.
Thank you. We'll move on now to item number 3, which is our Paso Robles City Library pandemic response.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm happy to be here tonight to share with you how the library has responded to COVID-19. I'll be sharing my screen now. Can we see that?
I can see it.
Yes? Okay. So in March, well, first of all, I just wanted to make sure to note that although we have significantly modified our services throughout the pandemic, the library has never actually closed. We've never ceased to offer services, and thus we've never technically closed the library. In March, when the very first orders required us to close our physical doors, we did begin to offer modified virtual and telephone service. Making use of emergency grant funds and other resources through the state library, we were able to expand our access to e-content. Our electronic circulation then increased, and as you can see, our circulation never dipped below 5,000 items per month. While some library staff began serving in the Emergency Operations Center, others immediately took up the charge of creating digital content. The library staff was, with Recreation Services, responsible for creating the initiatives Virtual Paso and then Be Well Paso that address some of the mental health concerns in our community. We launched virtual story times, programs, and activities, handed out grab-and-go craft kits at school meal pickup sites, and even transitioned our popular summer reading program into a full online experience funded through our foundation. Our online presence resulted in our being contacted by Facebook. They used our library in one of their media releases, illustrating how libraries were engaging their communities using virtual platforms throughout the pandemic. In June, we were able to launch curbside library services. In that very first month, 7,800 physical items checked out. And although the city implemented a temporary purchasing freeze, our library foundation and our Friends of the Library made it possible for us to stock our shelves with new releases just in time for that launch. In July, we worked with the San Luis Obispo County Library to resume material sharing with them, and we also established guidelines for in-person library services. State guidelines include libraries as part of retail, and so in the purple tier, we are able to open for this grab-and-go service with modifications and 25% capacity. That very first month, our circulation of physical material jumped by 80%. This grab-and-go model that we adopted has been adopted by other libraries, and I have been contacted from libraries not only in California, but outside of the state to learn how we're providing our service. We offer visits of up to 20 minutes for browsing, for checkout, for computer use and printer use. And regardless of the tier we have found ourselves in, we've been able to offer a safer environment for staff and visitors by strictly adhering to our safety protocols. Monday through Saturday from 9 to 10 is reserved for vulnerable populations. Our staff work staggered shifts and they do not come in if they are not feeling well. We have plexiglass barriers installed at all our public service points. Workstations are disinfected before and after use. We receive a daily midday sanitation through our contracted cleaning services. All return materials are handled with gloves and checked in 96 hours after their return. Masks are required for all staff and visitors and provided for those that do not bring one of their own. Hand sanitizer is available throughout the building, and all seating has been removed to discourage people from staying in the building. We still offer curbside service for people who are not comfortable coming into the library, and we do still have people who make use of that service. I'm very grateful to our users because they have adhered to our usage guidelines, and as a result, we have not had any capacity or health issues. Since March, we've been able to double the number of internet hotspots available for checkout. We've introduced new preloaded learning tablets for our youngest learners. We've provided interactive kits to assist those experiencing memory loss, and we worked with the school district to provide over 1,800 high school students with our new Library Scholar Card. The students register through their school and they receive the card that allows them to check out up to 5 items and access all of the wonderful online resources available through the library. The great news is that anyone with a Paso card can access these resources. This includes resources to assist with homework, ebooks, popular magazines, genealogy, language learning tools, and thanks to some of the resources made available through the state recently, it also includes veteran and job seeker support. These resources are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and now it represents a quarter of our total circulation. In response to the pandemic and with safety guidelines in mind, we not only offer 20-minute computer sessions, but we also expanded the reach of our Wi-Fi service at both the library and the study center. 3/4 of our internet use is via our Wi-Fi connection and accessed outside of our building. Some of our Wi-Fi users are making use of our new Wi-Fi tables. These are small tables that can be checked out in the library and used on the benches right outside. The service was actually inspired by a high school student that was regularly sitting on those benches and doing her homework on her lap. We've also added a charging station for those needing to charge their devices, and for some of our users, that's actually the way that they stay connected to their loved ones. The library has always been known for its robust volunteer program, and we consider our volunteers a valuable part of our library family. Early on in the pandemic, we started weekly check-ins to see how they were doing. Later, we sent a postcard to capture those that we were not reaching. And recently, we established a monthly after-lunch bunch virtual meeting with volunteers. At these meetings, they receive updates, they learn details about some of the services we're offering, and they get to share with us how they're doing. So far, we have had 32 volunteers return to in-person service. They do adhere to the same safety protocols that staff do, and of course, we welcome them back. So much of what we've been able to do is because of their service. We are grateful for the opportunity to serve, and we take our role in the community seriously. This includes our essential service during the election season as a ballot drop-off location. We spent a lot of time reassuring voters about the ballot pickup process and are proud that so many people in our community place their trust in the library as a drop-off site. Over 8,000 ballots were dropped off at the library. Not only did this make us the most popular drop-box in the county, it means that more people voted in our library than they did countywide in person. I'm happy to report that over 100 children also voted in our concurrent children's election between the famous picture book characters Pete the Cat and Pigeon. Pigeon was our winner. Junior voters received a future voter sticker courtesy of the clerk recorder's office, and we've already received a nomination for next year. Here's a snapshot of what we've been able to provide since March. Staff and volunteers continue to offer almost daily virtual engagement opportunities. And with over 2,000 craft kits handed out at school meal sites already, today we were able to resume this service through a state grant. Next, we're preparing to launch a winter reading program. We invite readers of all ages to earn a reusable tote bag by reading 500 minutes of mysteries in December. If you go to our website, www.prcity.com/library, you can sign up now. And lastly, I'm excited to announce that our Library Foundation will be replacing some of our furnishings. In the future, you can look forward to new tables throughout, book displays, and an interactive and inclusive activity pod in our children's area, as well as an expansion of our new learning tablet collection. If I could just take a moment to thank our library staff, our volunteers, our maintenance division, recreation services staff, IT department, library board, friends of the library, and our Library Foundation for all of their support and assistance in helping us serve our community. And of course, I would like to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Again, this is a presentation item. No actions required by the council. Council questions, comments, Mr. Strong?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would like to comment that this is an outstanding presentation, but it's only part of the story. And Helica has done a marvelous job with our Library Board of Trustees, and they are very much engaged themselves and very active in ongoing support of the library. It is a tremendous service to our public, especially those who are suffering from social distancing and find that as a mental handicap right now. The library is serving as a tremendous mental health resource for our community. And I can thank Angelica for the wonderful presentation and congratulate her on the entire staff and the board on the outstanding job they're doing with our library. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I also agree. This is a wonderful presentation. I also have heard from my customers at the pharmacy that they have been really enjoying the grab and go. I have friends that have also been doing the book club, and they've been enjoying that. So this really helps out for a lot of our retired residents here to stay interactive with their friends. And I really appreciate everything that the library and the Friends of the Library and the Foundation are doing for our community. Thank you so much, Angelica.
Thank you. Councilman Gregory.
Yes, Angelica, a great presentation. And thank you to everybody who's supporting the library, from our staff and all the volunteers and all the foundations, keeping that a very center focal point of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilman Hammond.
None, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Angelica, great job. You, your staff, your volunteers. Certainly what you presented to us tonight does not fit the stereotypical mold of a library being a place where dusty books are held. So we appreciate all the activities that you've been involved in and all the ways you've served the community, especially during this pandemic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody in the community that would like to comment on this report?
Yes, sir, we do. Jacob Allred.
Very good. Mr. Allred, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to take a minute to say how important the library is to my family. I have 2 special needs kids, and they're in school right now, and just having access not just to the books, but like Angelica had said, expanding the services to Wi-Fi, to learning tablets, those types of things have been absolutely pivotal to helping my children learn, especially during this COVID lockdown. And even seeing how they're going forward with the inclusive children's area is a huge benefit to our community and people like me who have special needs children. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I really enjoy using the library, and I love what it does for our community.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
No, sir.
Very good. We move on now to general public comments. This is a time set aside where the public may address the council on items within the council's purview, but not scheduled on the agenda. Please begin by stating your name and address, each person limited to 3 minutes. Any person or subject requiring more than 3 minutes may be scheduled for a future council meeting or referred to committee or staff. Those persons wishing to speak on any item scheduled on the agenda tonight will be given an opportunity to do so at the time that item is being considered. So with that, we'll open it to general public comments. Do we have anyone waiting to speak?
Yes, we do. The first caller is Jan Albin.
Welcome, Jan.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I am Jan Albin and a resident of Quail Run Senior Community. I'm here tonight to bring to the council's attention the issue of the switch in our energy provider from PG&E to Central Coast Community Energy. For myself, the first I knew of this was when I received a PG&E flyer in the mail announcing their intention to seek a 4% rate increase. In that flyer, it said that the increase would be imposed on those customers that switched from PG&E to a third-party provider. Admittedly, I had no idea what they were talking about. But 3 days later comes a flyer from 3CE talking about the switch happening in January of 2021. So with magnifying glass in hand, I read the small print in the flyer over and over again. And then I did some research through the city website, and I found that the issue of switching from PG&E to 3CE came before the city council in May of 2019. And the ordinance to do that was adopted on June 4th, 2019. I personally have no problem with the agreement to switch. I get the why of it. My problem here, and I think I speak for a lot of folks out there, is that we didn't know about the switch or about this company. In 18 months, I have not heard anything or read anything about this company or the ordinance to allow the switch. Because of the lack of information, people are going onto their website and opting out because they don't know who it is and they don't know how this came to be. For myself, I would like some really good and clear information from the city. I did call their corporate office and spoke at length with their senior manager for account services. And that manager suggested that perhaps our city would like to get together with them and hold a virtual Q&A just for Paso Robles. They would tell us who they are, how the program works, followed by a Q&A that would allow people to call in with their questions and concerns, just like we're doing here tonight. You have a variety of ways to get a meeting announced to the public. We have a city website and a city newsletter, 2 widely read online newspapers, a radio station, and a variety of social media websites. And Mr. Mayor, you have a blog. All of those outlets could be utilized to announce a virtual meeting to the public. So I'm here tonight asking the city to make that happen. Thank you for the opportunity to relay the importance of getting the information out to the public so they can make an informed choice.
Thank you for your comments. Is anyone else waiting to speak?
Yes, sir. Next caller is Dale Guston.
Good evening, Dale.
Good evening, Dale Guston, 945 Spring Street. I just want to say I'm sad to see Tom Fucci leaving. And one of the reasons is I warned him when he came on board that he was not inheriting an easy job. And one of the reasons I told him that is I've seen this council be intoxicated with spending money where they shouldn't. And one example is, of course, my objection to the parking situation. $1 million, I think, was wasted. Another was the sandbox or whatever it's called up on 14th and Park, which has been sat dormant with a huge sum of money spent towards that. And then, of course, buying a lot out on Union Road for the fire station when you've got vacant lots at the even larger size at the airport that you already own. And then finally, you're going to give $1 million to help a developer develop his hotels down on 46 West. And I think this is just not wise spending of our monies. And then, of course, you got your money to help out with the fire and police on your taxes. I laud that. But I also want to say hats off to that library board and the librarian and their staff, because they were promised that whole building and they're never going to get that whole building, and yet they've managed to make do with what they have. So that's my comments for the evening.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Is there anyone else?
No, sir.
We will close general public comments and move on with the remainder of our agenda. Before we do that, could we, I'd like to ask of staff to sort of reiterate the public notification process on the power provider issue. I know that we did, I do believe we put it in our city newsletter and the usual notifications. Can someone give us a little précis of that?
Yes, sir. In fact, we did do city notifications, but that's all over and above the process that will be undertaken by CCC over the next coming months. During the switchover process, our agreement with them requires them to mail each and every current PG&E customer twice before the switchover occurs and twice immediately thereafter, because people can opt out either now before the switchover or immediately after the switchover, or again, every year after that, they will be able to opt out. So we believe that through the city's efforts, but primarily through the efforts of the energy provider, every PG&E customer should be aware, if they are not aware already, of the opportunity and their options that they can choose.
Wasn't this issue the subject of at least 2 public hearings and possibly a study session?
Yes, sir, and it's also on your agenda later this evening.
Okay, very good. I just want to make sure, I'm trying not to be defensive, but at the same time, got to take credit where credit's due. I think there was notification made, but I think the idea of a Q&A is certainly worthy and something that maybe we should discuss as we get closer to this, or maybe right after this occurs. Okay. Yes, moving on to the remainder of our agenda, I will ask if we're going to have any items to be deferred.
No, sir.
That brings us to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine, not requiring separate discussion. However, if discussion is wanted by a member of the council or public, the item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Council members and members of the public may offer comments or ask questions of clarification without removing an item from the calendar. Individual items are approved by the vote that approves the consent calendar unless an item is pulled for separate consideration. Items pulled from the consent calendar will be heard at the end of the meeting. That being said, I will ask council members if they have questions, comments, or they wish to have an item pulled, starting with Councilman Strong.
Yes, actually not pulled, but I have a question on 9 that relates to actually Jan Albin's same thing.
Question.
We did get a notice that PG&E is going to be going before the Public Utilities Commission and asking for that rate change, which punishes anybody who goes with CCCE and rewards anybody who stays with them. And on this item, I noticed that we have some positions we're going to be sharing with other members from our particular area that are going into or are already in CCCE. I'm wondering when we take over any of those positions, and if we are going to have any voice, or if CCCE or their members are going to object to the PG&E request at the Public Utilities Commission, especially since it would indicate that maybe PG&E hasn't been charging us what they ought to be charging us for the services they already deliver.
So the question is, when will that board be convened, and what authority will it have? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and also, are we doing anything, or is anybody that we know of related to this doing anything to appear at PUC and object to the rate change?
Mr. Frucci.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Strong, through the mayor. The CCCE is a member of a statewide organization of like organizations, and so they are taking the lead in the effort to object to the PG&E rate request, which clearly is more politically motivated than substantively motivated, because it costs absolutely no more for PG&E to serve a customer who chooses to join CCCE than one who chooses to opt out. So as CCCE further develops the campaign, they will let us know, and there will be opportunities for both the city as well as each of our residential and commercial customers to provide input to the CPUC.
Okay, along that line then, do we know what the date is for that hearing at PUC?
I have not heard that the date's been set yet, but I will check and get back to the council.
Okay, then I have another question, but that's on a different item. On item number 11, pardon me. Item number 11, that's reducing that to a 1 lane rather than the 2 lane? And what are we really saving by going to 1 lane rather than 2?
Are you mean the roundabout?
Yes.
Well, first of all, I think when we went through the Housing Constraints Committee, the 2-lane roundabout would have needed to acquire property from the school district and from the other surrounding areas. So the design team was tasked to see if a 1-lane roundabout would suffice so that we didn't have to acquire right of way. And they did an analysis, and it was concluded that a 1-lane roundabout would suffice at least for the 20-year life and would allow us to move forward with the project without having to acquire property.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia, questions or comments?
No, sir. I have the same questions as Mr. Strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory?
Yes, I just have one question on item 10 for Tom. So after our city joins, then we'll have the opportunity to possibly get onto that same board of operation or governing board?
So the seat that is reserved for us is actually shared by the cities of Morro Bay, San Luis Obispo, and Paso. That's to minimize the total number of seats on the board. And because Morro Bay and San Luis Obispo have been in CCCE now for over a year and have already developed working relationships and expertise, the thought was that they would continue to occupy that seat, and we'll do it on a rotational basis, and we will come in after them. The city of San Luis Obispo has been providing the staff for all 3 cities and will continue to do so. And Derek Johnson, the city manager of San Luis Obispo, is in line to become the chair of the policy board. So we feel on an interim basis we are very well represented, and they continue to ask our opinion and input on policy issues. So it's not as though we're not being represented well.
And Tom, just one more question. Have San Luis Obispo or Monterey reported on how it's going with this company?
I'm sorry, report on how it's going with what? I'm sorry?
With the CC, with the energy folks, how is it going? Are they doing well with it?
Yes. Yes, sir. We've continued to get favorable reports from cities in Santa Cruz and Monterey County who've been members for many years, as well as San Luis Obispo, who's taken the lead in this county.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hammond.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, exactly. 9 and 11, I had some questions. So, Tom, continuing kind of what Councilman Gregory was talking about, I think the item here is for us to assign our authority or our vote to the existing status quo, which to me is more on the liberal side of things. And I, don't appreciate that. I mean, on the other hand, they do have knowledge, but how are they going to inform our council, of deliberations or things and opinions that we need to weigh in on? How are they be doing that?
So the process has not been finalized yet, but the intent is at both the policy level and the operational level, as the agendas come out, and they come out far in advance of the meeting to give the cities a chance to become informed and decide on how to react and vote, it would give us the opportunity to meet with our corresponding representatives at both the policy level and operations level, and jointly determine the position that would be taken and the vote would be taken. So we can set that up and have anyone from the council that either wishes to become involved or that is appointed by the council to become involved at the policy level work with their peers at both the other two cities.
Okay, and I'm pretty upset about the fact that PG&E is doing what it's doing, and luckily that's why we fought to have an opt-out. We don't really have to go with Central Coast Community Energy. If we want to, we can always come back. But on the other hand, this is kind of a dirty trick in my opinion. But having said that, again, just as long as we have some options still available to us, I personally think if we can talk about or even have some direction given to staff, that I think we need to engage Central Coast Community Energy in having a town hall or something here in the next couple months before January. I really think that's super important at this point to engage them and get the public back talking. I mean, we went over this quite a lot previously when we chose to allow them, to bring us in. But I'm having second thoughts myself at this point if they can't perform. So at any rate, I don't know what the rest of the council, maybe we can do that in council comments and give you full direction. But anyway, that's good on 9. And then on the 11, with regard to the pipeline, this is a change order that we're looking for. I don't quite understand. In other words, the pipeline that is there or not there right now, this has a little bit to do with our future fire station on that property there south of or east of the intersection. Is that what this is about?
No, it's not, Mr. Hammond. The pipeline that the staff report refers to is our existing pipelines going north-south on Golden Hill and east-west on Union Road through that intersection. Those pipelines are existing and they're asbestos cement pipe and quite brittle. And so that's why we need to remove them and replace it with ductile iron, because during construction, the fear is that the vibration and compaction during the road construction, it would affect the integrity of those pipeline and could break, and we don't want that to happen. And so that's why we need to remove that ACP and reinstall ductile iron pipe. It has nothing really to do with the fire station. The exhibit just says that that property happens to be where the future fire station is and has nothing, it doesn't really, it wasn't because of the fire station that we're having to do this water lines.
Yeah, the exhibit, I guess, got me off on what, trying to read that situation. And just for my edification too, did we ever, as far as council, sign off on that design of that, I can't recall, of the actual roundabout there? Sounds like you went through Housing and Constraints Committee, but did that ever get back up to public view for the council?
Yes, we presented the final design to you in December, I believe, of last year. And your action was proceed with final design and move into construction.
Yeah, I remember talking about it, but I don't remember, coming back after the design was finished. That was my question. But it sounded like you ran it by the Housing Constraints Committee.
Well, no, we actually ran the preliminary. So we had 221s, if you recall. We had 221s and presented to you the final design after the Housing Constraints Committee determined that we could move with the single lane roundabout. So we held a 221s with you, and then we took from after the 221s, we took it to a formal city council meeting, presented to you so you could take action on it, and the action was that to move into final design. So we're actually not finally designed yet. We're only at 65% design, and it was at 65% design that we discovered that part of the project needed to remove and replace the existing brittle water pipe. So the final design isn't complete yet. We've been instructed to finish the final design back in December.
So just for the public's information, what is our timeline on this intersection?
So we're moving in. So after tonight, we will now move ahead and prepare the 100% plans and specifications and move out to bid, hopefully first or second quarter 2021, and maybe poised to be in construction by late summer 2021.
Okay. Yeah, I think everybody would love to see that intersection improved. That's definitely important. And again, so it sounds like end of next year, we should see basically construction started. And hopefully a year from now, we're going to be driving on a new intersection, correct?
A year and a half, just to be safe.
Quicker the better. Okay, thank you, Ditas. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have anybody in the public who wishes to make a question on one of our consent calendar items?
No, sir.
Very good. We'll close the public comment, bring it back to the council. We've had our chance to ask our questions. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'd like to make
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Strong.
Yes, I would like to move approval of the consent agenda items 4 through 11.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Gregory. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on now to public hearings. Item number 12, introduction of ordinance to update sewer use provisions of chapters 14.08 and 14.10 of the municipal code.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Matt Thompson, wastewater manager for the city of Paso Robles. I'm here to introduce an ordinance to update the sewer use provisions of the municipal code. This update is needed because there have been some major changes to the city's wastewater system in recent years. So federal regulations require the city to update limits it places on industries that discharge waste into the city wastewater system. I'm going to take a few minutes to explain the proposed changes before I recommend you open a public hearing and, if appropriate, proceed with first reading of the ordinance. The first major change to the city's wastewater system is that Templeton Community Services District disconnected from the system in 2019. Templeton has relatively salty wastewater, so removing its flow has freed up some capacity to receive additional pollutants from industries that discharge into the city wastewater system. The second major change
Councilmember Strong, could you mute your mic, please? Matt, you can go ahead.
All right. Sorry for the technical problems there. All right. The second major change is that the city commissioned new tertiary treatment facilities at its wastewater treatment plant in May 2019. These new facilities have replaced use of chemicals for disinfection of wastewater with ultraviolet light. This has further reduced pollutant levels in the city's wastewater stream, which also enables the city to receive slightly more pollutants from industries. After these changes occurred, the city hired the professional engineering firm Larry Walker and Associates to study the performance of the wastewater system and recommend new local limits. Their technical report is included in your agenda package for this item. Here's a table listing all changes to limits we propose as a result of this study. Most of these are very small changes. I've highlighted for you the most significant and relevant changes, which are for sulfate, total dissolved solids, and sodium. Relaxing these particular limits will make it much easier for industries, especially wineries and breweries, to continue operating in this city. For example, by relaxing the limit for total dissolved solids, this will enable Firestone Walker Brewery to avoid installing a very expensive reverse osmosis treatment process and avoid trucking all of the resulting salty waste out of the city for disposal. By adopting these new limits, I believe we will establish a better balance between protecting water quality and supporting our local industries. We're also taking this opportunity to correct some deficiencies in the municipal code. First, we're proposing to add new and improved provisions regarding grease control. City staff has developed a new manual based on best industry practices that will guide new food service establishments on how to properly select, install, and maintain grease control devices. A copy of this manual is included in your agenda package. The proposed ordinance requires new food service establishments to follow this manual. This will go a long way to prevent sewage spills and help minimize the city's costs for cleaning grease out of the sewer system. Next, there is a trend in new development areas for major parts of the neighborhood sewer system to be owned, operated, and maintained by a homeowners association instead of the city. The ordinance includes new provisions to ensure such private sewer systems are designed and constructed according to the city's engineering standards and are properly maintained. This too will help prevent sewage spills and minimize costs to the city. Lastly, you may recall when we last did this in 2018, the city established a program whereby small wineries and breweries may discharge high-strength wastewater and pay a surcharge on their sewer bill in lieu of installing a relatively expensive biological treatment system. The existing code language on how to calculate the surcharge is not clear, so that language is corrected in the proposed ordinance. At this point, I'll conclude by recommending you open the public hearing and, if appropriate, move ahead with first reading of this ordinance. The changes proposed with this ordinance will generally be good for Paso Robles businesses and enable the city to be better stewards of its wastewater system and the environment. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Our industrial waste manager, Patty Gwathmey, is also here with me and available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Our process is that we go through the council asking them to offer questions for clarification, questions of staff. We'll go to the public for public comment, and then once public comment is complete, we bring it back to the council for council consideration. So council questions of staff, start with Councilman Strong.
Yes, so if I understand this correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, that our improved capacity at our plant and the improved systems at our plant allow us to go up with this, plus the advice we're giving to them as to what they can do at the source. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Garcia?
Yes, sir. Matt, so is there, I I have been getting emails from the residents on this. So is there, when is the sewage increase going to take effect?
So we have 2 items coming to you in the coming months, Councilman Garcia. The item before you today has to do with the use of the sewer system, primarily by industries in town. We do intend to introduce some adjustments to sewer rates, likely in January.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you, Councilman Gregory.
Yes. So Matt, I had just a couple quick questions for you. So on the increase in limits in sodium, sulfate, and the total dissolved solids, is your system equipped to deal with that increase comfortably?
Sodium, sulfate, and total dissolved solids are all salts. Salts are not, they're dissolved in water, and they're not removed by the treatment system per se. So it's important for us to control those salts at the source. Now, by reducing the salt loading from Templeton Community Services District, that freed up some capacity in our system to receive additional salts from industries. And so there will really be no change in water quality. The water that we discharge to the Salinas River, and which will be our future recycled water supply, there should really be no change in the quality of that water as a result of changing these limits.
So those were the limits if Templeton was still hooked up with us. That's where we're typically at now. So by them leaving, we're able to raise it up to that level.
That is correct.
And how's it going on the winery and brewery discharge program that you mentioned, the third one?
I need to make a distinction. We have in Paso Robles some very small wineries and breweries that generate a very small amount of wastewater, and they are benefiting from the small winery and brewery program because it's not always economical for them to put in essentially a treatment plant to reduce the strength of their wastewater. Larger wineries generally have a better economy of scale and can afford to put in such systems. And so I would say generally the program is going along well. We do think in some cases it has induced some new businesses to come into town. We heard that directly for the small brewery that went in on Railroad Street a year or two ago. And we understand there is some other activity with small wineries and breweries in town.
And then one last question. So on the effort to reduce grease going into the system, are they providing in that document? I didn't get a chance to look at it. Are they providing what types of grease traps and grease interceptors to use, or are they doing a variety of suggestions?
The manual that you are referring to, the Fats, Oils, and Grease Control Manual, provides food service establishments several options for grease control devices. Sometimes they want to put in a device underneath the sink inside the kitchen. Sometimes they want to put in a large, essentially a tank out in the parking lot. And this manual guides them on how to properly select and size those devices based on the size of the food service establishment.
That's great. That's a great idea. I like that. All right. Thank you very much for all your answers, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hammond.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt, with regard to the costs that the city has to put out to clean up the grease, can you kind of give me some sort of idea what that entails? In other words, when the restaurants then put the grease down the sewer line, does that clog up, or what exactly are we having to expense to clean up?
Yeah, so this the city has a crew of about 5 staff, they're maintenance specialists, who go around town making sure that sewer lines remain clear. And grease is not the only thing that can block sewer lines. You also have tree roots and you have other issues that need to be cleaned out. And they use very expensive jetter and vacuum trucks that you may have seen driving around town. Those trucks are very expensive to operate. And it, of course, takes 2 staff to operate a large truck like that. And so to the extent that we can minimize how much grease is discharged into the sewer system and accumulates within the sewer lines, that would help us to minimize city staff time spent cleaning out grease. And certainly one of the costs that we want to, or liabilities we want to minimize, is our sewage spills. So we never want to get to a point where grease blockages are causing sewage to back up into the street and spill onto the street. And so this improved grease control will help us to minimize those costs and minimize those liabilities.
After that, and then the last thing is the salt. We've been talking about it for years that, water quality will probably eventually tell us to clean the salt up to certain levels, which we've always talked about maybe getting rid of water softeners, or at least having some sort of restrictions on new construction to reduce the salt and salinity. And so if that goes into effect, I mean, industry like Firestone and others that have salt discharge, at that point, would they have to implement these kind of costly devices to clean things up? Or, I mean, that's, are we just putting it off or kicking a can down the road a little bit by accepting?
I would not say that we're putting things off. First I need to address the fact that we no longer have issues with the Water Quality Control Board telling us to reduce the salt in our discharge to the Salinas River. We've had significant decreases in salt, and we now consistently comply with our permit discharge requirements to the Salinas River. What's now driving our need to control salt is that we intend to use this water as recycled water in the future. And fortunately in Paso Robles, one of the key constituents that the wine growers who would be irrigating with this recycled water are concerned about is chloride. And our chloride levels are below levels which suggest this water can be used for irrigation of wine grapes. We are not proposing to relax the local limit for chloride, but we do have the ability to receive a little bit more of sodium, sulfate, and total dissolved solids. As far as our industrial customers, our industrial waste manager has worked very closely with our many industries that contribute salt to our sewer system to control the sources of salt at the industry. And what we have found is that industries like Firestone Walker Brewery have implemented all of the best management practices, and they still had difficulty complying with the city's relatively stringent limit, for example, of total dissolved solids. And so we believe a minor relaxation of those limits is really a better balance. We don't want to drive industries to the point where they just can't afford to operate in the city.
I think I noticed on the list that you had chromium. In other words, maximum limits decreased on chromium. Do we have manufacturers doing that, using that element in our area?
There's one industry in town, Jocelyn Sunbank on Commerce Way, who does metal plating and could be a source for chromium. But they have made great improvements to their waste management in recent years and are no longer a source of chromium. And so they're really the only industry in town that could be affected by the slight decrease in that particular limit. But because of the way that they already manage their waste, we understand that by making this change, it would not require them to make any significant or expensive changes to their waste management.
So they're still within limits. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's go one more time around for council questions before we go to the public. Mr. Strong?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia?
No, sir.
Councilman Gregory?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Hammond?
Good to go. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to public comment. Anybody waiting to comment on this item?
We have no callers, sir.
Very good. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion. Mr. Strong?
Actually, you know, this is something that's needed. It's being done very well, and I congratulate staff on putting together a very excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia?
No, sir.
Mr. Gregory?
I think these are a really good report, excellent ideas, and I'm ready to make a motion, sir.
Ready when you are.
I move that we, make sure I read this right here, that we introduce by title only ordinance number XXXX, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Paso Robles, repealing and replacing chapters 14.08 and 14.10 of the Paso Robles Municipal Code. They're entirely regarding updates to the sewer use provisions and waive further readings.
Hammond seconds.
A motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. And Mr. Hammond, you were the only one that didn't get a chance to comment. I'm assuming by your second, you don't have any further questions?
No, sir. I'm fine. Thank you.
Let's go to a roll call vote then.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. I want to take a step back. It's our usual practice to do a summary report on our consent calendar so that people listening in who haven't had the chance to read the consent calendar online know what we've done. So I'm going to ask the city manager to go ahead and make that report now.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight on the consent calendar, the council approved the city council meeting minutes from October 21st, October 29th, and November 3rd. And those are crucial actions of the council because the minutes are the official record of council actions, and those are required to be kept in perpetuity. The council also received the warrant register, and that's the list of checks the city writes for the goods and services it purchases. And for this meeting, the warrant registered total $1.0 million, $370,000 of which is for water and wastewater. That's a relatively low 2-week total for the city and reflects the city's efforts to reduce expenditures during the pandemic financial crisis. The council also received the advisory body minutes from the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee and the Airport Commission. The council approved, as was discussed earlier, an MOU with the cities of San Luis Obispo and Morro Bay for sharing responsibility for governance on the Central Coast Community Energy Consortium. And we absolutely will work with CCCE to create opportunities for public engagement. There are 2 webinars that are already scheduled, but thanks to Jan Albin's comment and suggestion, we'll work for a special town hall meeting as well. The council approved the professional services agreement and construction contract for the South River Road Sewer Abandonment Project. And the name is actually a little bit misleading because what is involved is in extending a 6-inch force main 650 feet and properly capping and abandoning 5 sewer manholes. And that's all related to the Templeton project that Matt referred to earlier. And then finally on consent, the council approved a design change order for the Golden Hill and Union Road intersection improvements. And as Ditas indicated, that would replace an old 12-inch asbestos cement pipe, which would have had to have been replaced at some point. So it's really just hastening the replacement to ensure the new ductile iron pipe is stronger and able to withstand any vibrations from construction, and also to construct the remainder of the Ardmore Road north from the current end to Union Road. And this will reduce the schedule of the project, as Ditas referred to, by a good 8 to 10 months and reduce construction costs by $1 million and reduce the hassle and delays faced by people passing through as a result of the detours. So Those are the items that were approved on consent tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you for that report. We move on now to a discussion item, item number 13, approval of purchase of public safety 911 communications equipment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for having me, members of the council. This is Caleb Davis, Police Commander. If I could get my presentation up.
Commander Davis, will you be sharing your screen, or would you like someone to pull it up for you in the chambers?
If they could pull it up, that would be great.
Okay.
It should be up. Oh, no, it's not. There it is.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I'm excited to present to you tonight the public safety communications equipment project that we've been working on. This project has been ongoing for some time here for the police department, public safety, and public works, and we're excited to finally bring before you a product that we believe meets the needs of the city of Paso Robles. Next slide, please. The current system that is used in the police department that controls police, fire, and public works was purchased in 2001. It was updated to when we moved into the new public safety center. That equipment that we currently use is a Motorola-based equipment, and it actually reached the end of life in April of 2018. Since that time, we have been working with a vendor to extend our maintenance contract annually, which has been hard to do because many of the parts are no longer replaceable. So that has been a challenge for us over the last couple of years. The preliminary discussions to update this project started in late 2015, and over that course of time, we've taken a lot of steps to analyze what our needs are and how to best implement that plan for the city of Paso Robles. So you can see now, 5 years later, we've come to a conclusion of what we believe to be the best product to fit our needs at this time. Next slide, please. The Police Department Dispatch Center currently has 3 console stations. They answer 911 calls from 3 different lines at each station if they so choose, and we have 8 non-emergency lines. They handle all the radio traffic from the city of Paso Robles to include all fire, all police, and public works radio traffic. All that goes through our dispatch center. This project will help out all of our departments, including the police department, the emergency services department, and the public works department. Currently, our equipment is not P25 compliant, which is a standard that has to all police departments have to meet, and it currently does not meet the FBI or the CJIS security policy. And this will provide the police department with a secondary police radio channel. The emergency services department will also gain a secondary repeated radio channel and a audio notification system within the station here at the Public Safety Center. Public Works will receive an updated radio channel with new repeaters for their equipment. Next slide, please. As I previously stated, we have been doing this for since 2015, and in 2017, the city authorized a company by the name of Black & Veatch to assist us in identifying our needs of our radio system. The initial findings in that report were that we had 6 areas that we needed to address. those areas were the age of the current equipment. As stated, most of it has now been discontinued. The radio coverage that the police and fire experience within our city. Channel congestion, which is the fact that we only have one repeated channel per department at this time. Interoperability, which is basically our lack of communication between police, fire, and public works, and interoperability with other organizations. It also addressed our equipment needs to become P25 compliant and the needs for new portable and mobile radios along with repeaters and consoles. Next slide, please. In addressing this project, what we decided to do would be the best need for the city of Paso Robles is to replace all of our existing equipment and provide redundancy to our system. Currently, our radio system has two single points of failure. What that means is that there are pieces to our radio system that if they fail, the entire system will go down. We want to create some redundancy in the system to eliminate that so that we don't have single points of failure. The current radio system is nearly 20 years old, and we have built this system to last 15 to 20 years, and we are funding to replace this at the end of life, which is something we hadn't done for the beginning in 2001. This system we believe that it is built in such a way that lasting 15 to 20 years won't be a problem for this system. This new system that we're building is adaptable and has the ability to increase if needed. We can tell that this city is growing. We're spreading to the east, we're spreading to the south, and we want to be able to have a radio system that can grow with our city. Currently, we have 2 repeater sites. We have one here at the Public Safety Center and one at the Golden Hill Water Tank. That will not change with this new system, but we are going to install microwave dishes, which allow us to increase our repeater sites, if necessary, much easier than we would have been able to do in the past. That also allows us to repeat and receive and transmit from both of those sites, which is something we haven't been able to do before. This project also deploys cutting-edge technology to the city of Paso Robles. This will, by hands down, be the best radio system in the county, and it deploys interoperability within our organization, with our fire department and public works, as well as our neighboring agencies. To do this project, we decided on, after multiple ideas and talking, that Motorola has the best equipment that the city can deploy. We use Motorola for our current system, which is nearly 20 years old, and we have had very little problems with that. Their equipment is compatible with our current equipment, with our police and fire portables and mobile radios. And Motorola is the only vendor capable of providing all of this necessary equipment under one proposal, and which eliminates the needs for us to hire a consultant and allows us to use the funds that we have to purchase more equipment and necessary equipment, as opposed to paying a consultant to do the project. Next slide, please. What does this project do? I tried to break it down on who this project really benefits in our city and what it does for us. So on the police department side, we gain a secondary radio channel, and now we will have the ability to have a digital and encrypted radio channel. What that does is we've had incidents over the last year that we were responding to an emergency situation, and our radios were not able to be used because we were having interference based during that call for service. When we utilize a digital encrypted radio, we will no longer be able to be heard. And so that will be something that completely eliminates that problem for the police department. Additionally, the FBI and CJIS recently came out with security policies that are stating that we need to have a plan that we must be digitally encrypted in the near future. And because we are presenting this plan before you tonight with this approval, we would meet that requirement by the FBI. The new system will be a simulcast radio traffic, which will allow us to have better coverage throughout the system. As I stated earlier, we will have a redundant system. We will have new dispatch consoles with the ability to patch over multiple channels. We will have consolettes that allow the dispatchers the ability to change the radios at their location and a said interoperability with agencies. The fire department will also gain a second repeated radio channel, which they currently do not have, and they will have interoperability with us so that we can patch our two channels together. The Public Works Department will receive new radio equipment, and basically their channel can be used by the police or fire in case of emergency. If we needed to use an additional channel, that can be programmed into our handhelds now and is the same type of channel that we have on our current radio. So it basically gives the city of Paso Robles one more option needed. Next slide, please. The fiscal impact of this project, this has been a capital project for some time for the city of Paso Robles, with the city including capital expenditures beginning in the year 2008, fiscal year 2018-19, and through our current fiscal year. Currently, we have $2.6 million towards the project. And in June of 2019, we spent $322,000 with your approval for the current portable radios and body-worn cameras that the police department deploys. These radios that we use on a daily basis have proven already to be extremely valuable to what we do, and they are very, very durable for us on a daily basis. So this project will not only use these, but make these radios be used at their full capacity by being digitally and encrypted. The current project expense is $3.1 million with an additional 10% contingency cost for unforeseen or unexpected issues throughout the build out of the project. We have also included in this $52,270 for the audio notification system, which brings the project underfunded by $1.2 million. However, since this project will take 18 months to install, additional budget appropriations can be made in the 2021-22 fiscal year. How this project is funded is we will pay the largest percentage of the completion of this project well past the 21-22 fiscal year budget. We have an additional cost of $97,000 per year, which we will pay over the course of next 10 years. That is for a maintenance and service agreement. Currently, we have been paying $40,000 a year for our service agreement over the life of the radio system that we currently have. Next slide, please. It is for the reasons listed above that staff recommendations are to authorize the city manager to enter into contract with Motorola for the purchase and installation of this system, and the 10-year maintenance lifestyle not to exceed $4 million in total, and enter into contract with A-Town Audiovisual for the purchase of the emergency services radio equipment in an amount not to exceed the $52,000. With that, I would take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Once again, the formula for proceeding as it was before: council questions of staff, followed by public comment, then council consideration. So council questions of staff, starting with Councilman Strong, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no questions. Outstanding presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia?
No questions.
Thank you, Councilman Gregory.
Yes, I do have a few questions. First of all, on the financial part of it, in the recommendations, so about 3.1 million will be in the actual equipment, and then it'd be about $97,000 a year in maintenance costs. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir, that is correct. The 3.1 million includes equipment and installation of the project. And then the 97,000 is for service and maintenance over the course of the next 10 years.
So then I have another question for you, Caleb. How many repeat channels are we going to have with the new system? How many channels will we have access to?
Yes, sir. The new radio system will have 5 repeated channels. Currently, we have 3 repeated channels, 1 non-repeated channel. So this will require us to go find an additional radio channel through the FCC, and one of our channels will be a digital encrypted channel.
And then another statistical question: in your presentation or in the staff report, it says that our radio station our radio capacity, communication capacity, just basically ran out of ability because of the population. So with this new system, are you going to bump it up high enough so that we can accommodate the population increase for the next 15 years?
Yes, sir. That's speaking of earlier, the new system is built in a way that we can build upon it. We, in looking at this project and in the Black and Beach report that we had, we felt that we could come to you with this project and allow us to sustain what our current population is and more for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And if needed, we can expand to the east or to the south or whatever direction we have. We know where our coverage issues currently are, and we know that with this system, our coverage will definitely increase. And if the city continues to grow, we would have the ability to increase on this system. So it will definitely meet the needs of the city.
So if we were to be able to expand eastward for a substation, that might be a location or whatever. Okay. Thank you very much. Very good detailed report. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Caleb, a question. What's the time frame to perform the scope of the project? First, a question before that, though. Is this a sole source from Motorola? In other words, did we look for any other vendors, anybody else to get a competitive quote from?
Yes, sir. We have looked at other products that are on the market. No one else offers the products that we need for our city based on those needs. So in that, yes, we've also analyzed our pricing with the LA County contract that has the same equipment. And so we are competitively priced with what we have, but yes, it would be a sole source project.
Okay, and then time frame to complete the scope?
Yes, sir. Motorola has 18 months listed on their scope of work that we have here in our presentation today. So 18 months from time of approval to the project completion.
Okay, and so I do have a little problem then, I think, with that amount of contract, over $3 million to have a 10% contingency of what, over $300,000 then? To me, it seems like, especially with their history with Paso Robles, they know everything about us and what they needed to do to get a competitive quote. I don't feel comfortable personally leaving that door open for another 10%. And I know staff has always been very good about, being conservative with, any kind of change orders, but I'm just curious, why they couldn't, is that a firm fixed price? In other words, and who negotiated the 10%? And if so, maybe we can narrow that down a little bit. I know there's always something that's unforeseen, but to have $300,000 sitting out there just seems like taxpayer money could be used wrongly there.
Yes, Councilmember Hammond, this is Ryan Cornell, Admin Services Director. The contract, as it is stated, is not to exceed. So that is the 40 mil or the 4 million is what the Motorola contract would be. The contingency, the 10% contingency, is more for anything outside of those contracts that might come up. If they get to the site and we need a staging area constructed, that's kind of what we were thinking as far as having the budget exceed the contract costs, so kind of for those unforeseen circumstances. But based on council's direction, that could be as little as $0, but we don't think that anything greater than 10% is needed.
Okay, and then I'll say it again, because over the years I've always asked this, when we do award a contract like this, we never really hear at the end of a completion of a project really back to council how much of that contingency was used. I would request again, if we're going to move forward with the way it's written here, that we always get reports at the completion of any project, doesn't matter this one or another, but that we understand what happened with that contingency and where it went, or if it didn't go at all, which is good. So that would be my input. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's do one more round of questions before we go to the public. Mr. Strong?
Well, I don't have any additional questions. John kind of made a comment at the end, and I would make the same comment that if we have a not to exceed contract, I don't know why we need a contingency at all. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll get to that during discussion. Any further questions? Moving on, Councilwoman Garcia?
No, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory?
So Caleb, or Ryan, actually, sorry. So just to make it clear so we all understand, the contract is an agreed to contract and the contingency is for things outside of the contract.
That is the intention, yes.
So Motorola is going to perform no matter what, and the reason for the contingency is to support the implementation of the system. Okay, thank you.
One last one here with regard to A-Town audiovisual, the installation of emergency service radio equipment. Is that actually in the vehicles or something? What part of the scope are they handling that Motorola is not?
Yes, sir. They are going to replace in the public safety center. That is the overhead radio within the fire department, so that employees that are within the building can hear the current radio traffic. That system has needed to be replaced for a while, was always supposed to be part of the communications project, and A-Town Video is able to provide that service.
It's like a speaker system within the station?
I can help you out, Caleb, there. Mr. Hammond, this is Jonathan. So when we built the Public Safety Center, we had a radio system, an alert system, just like we had at the old Fire Station 1. And that system, it's been in service for almost 20 years now, and we can no longer get parts for it. So for about the last 7 to 8 years, it's been inoperable. So when our staff's in the station and they receive a 911 call, they're unable to hear it through the audio system. They're required to carry radios with them. And when we carry radios with each other, obviously, or on our sides, then the batteries go dead and they're not available to use once we're out on an incident. So this will put the system back in service and prevent us from having problems with our handhelds on incidents.
Yeah, understood. Now I understand. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Thank you.
Very good. Unless there are further questions, we're going to public comment. Anyone waiting to make a comment?
No, sir.
Very good. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council for consideration. Mr. Strong?
Yes, well, I think the outstanding portion of this is that it will serve multiple agencies simultaneously, and it actually gives our existing personnel far more control over situations and actually alleviates the fact that we are way below staff. And it's going to take us time to build that staff back up, even with the passage of our sales tax increase. So I'm extremely happy with this, but I still feel that, if this is a not to exceed contract, and if there are other things we anticipate that might be needed, they should have been in the original at the request for bids. And if they weren't in there, maybe they should be separate bids rather than a contingency. I don't understand that contingency and not to exceed contracts. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a quick clarification?
Sure.
So the contingency wouldn't necessarily be tied to Motorola's contract. It's the project overall. And so we're thinking that this additional cost might not necessarily go to Motorola, but rather to another construction company to do a staging site for Motorola's equipment. So this contingency amounts that we're talking about is more of on a project, unforeseen project cost, not necessarily based on the contract with Motorola.
Well, I just think that should come back for a separate contract then. And not just be a contingency that we just, hey, make a decision, we pay somebody because we want to pay them. I think council should have some voice in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia?
I thought about a question, sir. I was thinking, you know how the equipment that we currently have now, is there any way that we could that we can sell that equipment to someone to get money back?
I can jump in here. This is Chief Lewis. So in the past, because of all of this equipment is at its end of life and they don't make parts for it, it makes it very difficult for agencies to want to purchase, 20-year-old equipment. We have in the past, however, because we've had to do this, there have been agencies out there that aren't able to replace their equipment quite yet, and they might be looking for parts. As you know, for good karma reasons, a lot of times we'll step up and we'll put some information out there that says if you have one of these old pieces of equipment and you need something from it, to contact the police department, and we're able to help out. Otherwise, a lot of agencies like us have been resorting to eBay and other places to try and find equipment, but typically there's not a big market for it.
Okay, I like that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Gregory?
Yeah, I'd just like to, I'm very supportive of this proposal. I think it's very well done. I just want to address the contingency from my point of view. When you have a project of this size, you need a 10% contingency, and it's not controlled by Motorola. It's controlled by our staff and whoever's directing the construction of the project. And if we need something like that, we could go to that. They can make a report to us if you like, to make people feel more comfortable. But I think you need to have it there so that they can move through the project smoothly and not have to wait for approvals for putting things in that we need to complete the project in a timely manner. And, that's all I have to say. I'm ready to make a motion, but I'd like to wait for Mr. Hammond's comments.
Very well. Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, maybe a question about the funding and sources. We had budgeted part of this, I believe, and it looks like from the staff report that we will be able to use some of J20 money toward the end when it starts coming in. Is that correct? Ryan, I guess.
Yes, Mr. Hammond, the current project budget that's in there now did come from general fund. So that was either general fund reserves or general fund revenues for that fiscal year. So as of it states in the staff report, we're underfunded by about 1.2 million. And so that will be addressed during the next budget process. The likely sources of where that 1.2 million will come from is J20 proceeds. But that hasn't been determined or recommended by staff yet. But we think we're going to pick that up during the budget process to make determination or recommendation to City Council.
Yeah, the staff report further says, approximately 18 months for the scope of the project, which we certainly will have J funding coming in by that point. I just, want to make sure we have enough to cover the debt, so to speak, or our obligation at this point. So that's fine. And then I guess the last question, maybe to the chiefs, will these new systems communicate with our old radios? In other words, would there be value? I mean, if we ever have an emergency, you can't have enough people talking on communications, sometimes too much. But the point is, communications is everything in an emergency. So are these older radios, if we were to keep them in reserve, are they going to be able to communicate with the new system that we're buying, or is it completely different?
Mr. Hammond, this is Commander Davis, I can comment to that. Yes, anything that we have today would be compatible with the new system if we found a need for that. We've certainly discussed keeping some of the old radios that we have, the portables, to replace the radios that we have in the EOC, because those are the older generation. But current equipment would be compatible with the new system, yes.
Yeah, that's very good, Caleb. I really think that's important, even though, batteries might wear out, but I mean, those are easily changed out. And if it's still capable of communicating with a newer system, I think they have some value to us, even though we won't get a whole lot of them on the market to sell them somewhere else. So I think that's fine. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, you had a motion?
Yes, sir. Any comment from you, Mayor?
Well, I just want to say that personally, I think that this is absolutely critical to our public safety efforts. I think the word that pops out to me the strongest is interoperability. I know my experience with emergency services for 30 years, both on the council and working in the media, is when there's a major emergency, if your different departments can't talk to each other, it really inhibits addressing that emergency. So I think this is something that's really going to make our public safety services more flexible and more efficient and keep our citizens safer. On the issue of the contingency, I think that the value to us is that it is something that is under the control of the city, not under the control of the vendor. But I do agree with Mr. Hammond. I would like to be notified when that contingency is dipped into, so we know exactly how much we're going to be spending on this. With that,
Mr. Mayor, I have one real quick question, Mr. Mayor, and that was with regard to putting money back. I mean, this older system took 20 years. Question to our safety departments: are we putting a little bit back every year to pay out for the new system that's going to happen in another probably 20 years?
Yes, Mr. Hammond, this is Commander Davison. Yes, we are. That is stated in the report that we will continue to put money away over the course of the next 15 years. We are budgeting for this system to be replaced in 15 years, but we think it could go longer, but we're going to budget for it to be replaced in 15 years.
Very good. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. That was all I had. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you. Mr. Gregory.
All right. At this time, I'd like to move that we authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Motorola for the purchase and installation of the Data 911 communication equipment and 10-year maintenance and life cycle services, not to exceed $4,050,339, and enter into a contract with A-Town Audiovisual for the purchase and installation of emergency services radio equipment in the amount not to exceed $52,271. And I'd just like to ask for a completion review of the project at the end of the 18 months to see how it came out and what it cost.
Strong seconds.
I have a motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Strong. Any further discussion on the motion, Mr. Strong?
No, sir.
Ms. Garcia?
No, sir.
Mr. Gregory?
I'm good.
Mr. Hammond?
No, sir.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Now we go to item 13A. This is actually an item on a concurrent agenda. It's a concurrent meeting with tonight's meeting. This is a separate item, and technically it's a meeting that is running concurrently with this regular meeting. I know that's confusing, but that's the way it is. Item number 13A, addressing recent tier change and increases in COVID-19 cases here in Paso Robles. Mr. Fucci, do you have this one? Are we ready? I believe someone is muted.
I am trying to check with City Manager Furcci.
Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate to take a 5-minute recess until we got everyone back in sync?
That's fine with me if it's going to take a while. Anybody, any staff online that can give us a prognostication?
I have reached out to him. I do not have any answer at this moment, sir.
Okay, so let's take a brief recess. We'll come back when we're hooked up and ready to go.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe we're ready to continue now with our meeting. Is staff up and ready to go?
Yes, Mayor Martin, this is Sarah Johnson Rios. I can take the presentation if we need to.
I'd be happy to do it, Sarah.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So as we heard earlier from Mr. Stornetta's presentation, and as has been dominant in the news recently, the number of cases worldwide, nationwide, statewide, and in SLO County have really increased dramatically over the past 2 weeks. And this is believed to continue, especially here in the United States because of the Thanksgiving holidays. Next slide, please. We continue to be in our zip code to have the highest number of cases throughout the county. That has stayed that way since the early days of the pandemic. Next slide, please. Just a reminder of the 4 tiers. Next slide, please. And the fact that effective today, we went back to the purple tier, or the most restrictive tier. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So in the city and throughout our zip code, we have since the very beginning worked with our residents and businesses to maintain an appropriate balancing between and among the various factors that determine the overall extent of the pandemic and the overall economic and physical and medical health of members of our community and the community as a whole. This is being threatened right now by the dramatic increase in cases. Next slide, please. We really feel at this point the city has several options that it could take going forward, and there are 3 options we'd like to highlight for you tonight. The first is we could continue to do the efforts we have been doing. You heard, for example, from the library, the efforts being taken by Angelica and her staff. And in previous meetings and coming meetings, you'll be hearing presentations from other departments as to their efforts. We could continue to do exactly as we've been doing. This does not mean staying static, but it means not entering into any major new areas. Second option is that we could conduct a second round of microgrants to assist businesses. We know with the new restrictions that are being imposed, there are going to be businesses throughout the communities that will again suffer. And we could conduct door-to-door business visitations to work with those businesses that are either resistant or unable to meet the new restrictions. That would all be part of the second option. And the third option, and we'll go into each of these options in more detail, is we could do everything that we're doing now. We could add all of the second option activities, as well as we could initiate administrative enforcement of violators of the governor's restrictions. So those are the 3 overall options. Obviously, there are variations and sub-options, but we want to at least give you the range of types of activities we could undertake moving forward. Next slide, please. So a slide, for some reason, is missing that went into details under each of those 3 options. So, Warren, if you could go back one. So just to go into more detail as each of those options as the slides would have done. Under option 2, we did conduct 1 round of microgrants. That was very successful, and it provided assistance to between 30 and 35 businesses. And as you remember, we had numerous applications for assistance. We know there are businesses that are going to be hurting again as a result of the new restrictions. We could do a second round. Our CARES funding has been totally committed. However, we do have revenues that have been coming in above budget, And so we could operate a second round of micro grants from those revenues at either the same level as the prior round, or we could actually do a slightly more aggressive round of micro grants. In addition, just as other cities in the county are gearing up to have part-time temporary staff work with individual businesses, we could do the same thing with businesses in our community. So that's the second option. By providing the second round of micro grants, we could encourage businesses to adhere to the governor's restrictions and assist those that by adhering to those restrictions are being financially harmed. We've already heard that there are a significant number of businesses who at this point are saying they are not going to adhere to the governor's restrictions. And we feel that's both a risky strategy for those businesses as well as for the rest of the community, because that will not in any way minimize the spread of the coronavirus that is already starting to take off. Okay, that's option 2. Option 3 is we could do all of those things that option 2 talks about, plus we could start to enforce the restrictions. Now, enforcement has been a tricky issue for all the cities in the county, as well as Paso Robles up till now. As you know, the district attorney has indicated that he will not prosecute any business unless it's a truly egregious violator of the state and county restrictions. In addition, our police department is significantly understaffed currently through vacancies and just the few positions that we have. And Chief Lewis has appropriately not wanted to diffuse his efforts and take away enforcement of more serious matters to divert his staff to take on enforcement of the COVID-19 restrictions. Under option 3, we would not be asking current police staff to undertake any of the enforcement activities. We would hire part-time temporary staff to be trained and take only administrative citation efforts. And we have this ability under our current code. Other cities are taking that effort. For example, as of last week, the city of San Luis Obispo had already issued 271 citations ranging from $500 to $1,000 fine for each violation. And it's a way of not penalizing companies, but indicating to them by not adhering to the governor's restrictions, they're putting their owners, their employees, and their customers at risk, and that there is a better way. So that would be option 3, would take advantage of all the efforts under option 2, plus allow the issuing of administrative citations. As I indicated, these are just illustrative options, and the council could choose to direct us to do any variations of any of those 3 options. That concludes the presentation, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Same formula as before. We do council questions, followed by public comment, followed by council consideration. Starting off with council questions, Mr. Strong.
Yes, I have a few questions. Number 1, what's the source of the micro grants if we start doing more of them, and how much would we have available for that purpose?
So as Mr. Cornell has presented at prior meetings, revenues are running at rates higher than was anticipated when we entered the pandemic, and as a result, higher than were budgeted. In addition, thanks to the efforts of the departments, expenses are running significantly less than we were budgeted. So in essence, we would be using the available net revenues for this effort